Hello, ma'am. Is my screen being presented?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Could you go to the next slide, please? Okay. So I'll repeat again, I guess. Okay. Basically, what the password cracking is basically password cracking refers to various measures used to discover computer passwords that are usually accomplished by from a data storage in some kind of a server or some kind of a system on the company side. The password cracking is done by either repeatedly guessing the password through through a computer algorithm. The password cracking is typically done for various reasons, including gaining unauthorized access to the system or gaining unauthorized access to a server as well. Next slide, please. Yeah. Uh, the data breaches happen like very typically, and it is estimated over 9 months ago identity theft resource center or ITRC recorded over 1,000 data breaches, with over 50% of them being the very large companies which have been data breached. And some of the easy ways the companies get into these things are the social engineering, weak access, architectural vulnerability, and the third party access. uh, where the social engineering basically includes uh, attacks like phishing attacks, spammers, or spywares that are not uncommon to people just like keeping secrets. Well, most of the accounts are individually for the individual social engineering. Most of them are individual level, like personal level, and this is exactly what happened with Yahoo in 2016. Uh, an FBI report gave that once the an intruder had given a spyware into one of the employees of Yahoo, and gained a system level access of that employee. Once the intruder had an access to the system, they created forged cookies in the person's account or the browser and got access to the names, addresses, telephone numbers, date of birth, encrypted passwords, and unencrypted security questions for over a billion users. Hackers also use weak access control around when the data is stored or how it is transferred. The recent work trend towards the bring your own devices to the companies has increased this risk, as many of these devices do not have a recommended security patches installed in them. And risk also comes from man in the middle attacks or any other Wi-Fi attacks that use an unsecure protocol as WAP or WPA2. When it comes to exploiting technical or architectural vulnerabilities, technical exploits like zero-day attacks or the sophisticated intrusion like the Sony picture hack attack, which was done like couple of years ago, are the major examples of these. Finally, when the company gives out their access or the server access to other companies, and you give the authorization from your account to for them to access, they eventually have all your details like your phone number, email address, everything. And when those third party accounts or the companies have a data breach in them, your username and the password gets passed down to them as well. Next slide, please. This slide shows the data breaches from the 2013 to 2018, and in 2030 alone, 70 million people were affected by the data breach from a single company called as Target Stores. And this company, though dipped in the 2013 to 2014 time period, has ever increased, and the pandemic hasn't uh, helped it much. And very recently, as you people would have known if you have like gone through the things, a week ago Facebook got hacked at a rate of 533 million people. And recently, yesterday, LinkedIn was like announced that it was hacked, and over half a billion people were affected. But though that was a very like scamming part, but most of the data breaches don't happen that way or very often. Next slide, please. Uh, these are the data breaches in just 2020, and you can see the Cam4 adult website was hacked, and over 10.88 billion records and over 7 terabytes of user data was broken out. Safety detectors who were looking why the breach happened in the first place found that the Cam4 has misconfigured an Elasticsearch production database, which is basically a search database which has like a most efficient way of searching through all the records, and they had just misconfigured that, and uh, it's basically a full text search and analytical engine that allows multiple tenants to search through their entire dataset regardless of the size. And the worst part of this is the Elasticsearch are intended for the internal use only. And but someone makes a configuration error and that leads to an online breach. And you can see not only the Cam4, many popular companies such as Facebook, Microsoft, Google have been on this list in the 2020 itself. Next slide, please. Uh, I believe most of the people like use the same password on different websites, and this is a list of analytics of how many people actually do that. 22% say on the poll say that they never use, and 5 to 25% of the people say 30% of the people say they for the most part 5 to 25% of the websites they use the same password. But the problem with using the same password is once one website gets hacked and the password is released or the dataset is released for the whole one, the hackers would basically crack the password, get your credentials for that website, and then they would just imagine and try out the same website on other websites. And say you had the same website for your Facebook and your Google account. Once a person gets access to your Facebook account, because it gets hacked very often, you would also go back and try on your Google account to just to see if it actually goes through. And voila, you have used the same password, so it goes through, and you have gotten your they've gotten your Google account access as well. So for the most part, majority of the part don't use the same password on different websites, and try to generate new passwords or unique passwords for every each and every website you log into. Next slide, please. Okay. When talking about password cracking, I would like to say about the pseudo random function. Pseudo random function is basically a computer algorithm, which you can think of it like the if the input is given input is uh, a bunch of fruits which you are given. If you pass through an hash function, in our context, let's take it as a fruit mixer, it would be converted into a juice, and converting fruits into a juice is very pretty easy to do, but converting back from the fruit juice to the whole fruits is pretty much impossible. We can think the pseudo random function as the same thing, where for a computer, converting the input or the password into a random string would be very easy for a computer to do, and it would be done in terms of milliseconds, in terms of computational time period. But to convert the hashed or the random string function to the password, the original password, it would almost take 100 to 200 years to convert them. So we can pretty much say that it's impossible to convert it back. Unfortunately, I am not able to share my screen, or else I would have shown the demo of how this function works and how it works. Next slide, please. Okay. Coming to types of password cracking, there are multiple ways of password cracking which have been started to develop from the day the password was first created in 1950s or 1960s, and they people have always tried to gain unauthorized access to those systems which have been password. And one of the popular ways that would be the first method would be the brute force. Next slide, please. Okay, brute force is basically a simple way, but very, I wouldn't say powerful, but very uncommon way of password cracking, where you would think you would guess the length of the your password, say 4 letters in this case, and you would just basically try out all the possible combinations in your English dictionary. So it starts from A. It tries the password, gets an error that the password is wrong, goes to the next password, trying A at the last B. It would try again. It doesn't happen. It goes to the next iteration, AAAC, and goes on. And even though this is a very computationally time-consuming process to do, but you have a guarantee that the password would be found through this method. Coming to the how much complexity this brute force has, if you take a data set of A to Z, that would be your 26 characters, the complexity is given by the character set to the power of the length of your password. To give an example, on the bottom left side, you can see the character set to be A to Z, and your length of the password being the 4. So that would be 26 to the power 4 complexity, and that would come around 26,000 iterations, and these iterations taking even few milliseconds, that would be pretty easy to crack. It would maximum take like 2 or 3 seconds to brute force through it. But if you had characters or my bad numbers at the end of your password, saying A and two numbers at the end, this complexity multiplies by 26 to the power 4 into 10 to the power 2. The 10 to the power 2 is basically your number set, that would be 0 to 10 or 0 to 9 to the power of 2, because two digits are being used. In this case, the computational time taken would go in term would be converted in terms of milliseconds to seconds. But you can imagine if the character length, the password length would go about like 8 to 9 character length. The password, it would probably take like a year or 2 years to brute force through each and every character. And even this gets worse when you include the password of like the character set to be small letters, uppercase, symbols, all kind of symbols, and your numbers. So the main drawback of, or yeah, the main drawback of using brute force is the computational time it takes, which would vary from in terms of seconds if the password is very weak, to in terms of years if the password is pretty long and strong. Next slide, please. Coming to the next attack, the dictionary attack. Basically, what the dictionary attack means is you have a list of passwords, or a list of passwords which were been hacked previously. So you either take a bunch of passwords which the real users have been using, or you would create your own password list from the English dictionary. And basically, what you would do is you would pass each and every password or in the dictionary through a pseudo random function, and this function would convert your password to the hash file, because remember, the password can only be converted to a hash file easily, and converting the hash file back to the password is pretty difficult. So what we would do is we would just basically take the hash of the actual password we are trying to crack, and we would go through each of the dictionary letter each of the passwords in the dictionary, and we would hash them. We would get a hash key, which would be, if the hash key which has been generated from the dictionary is, if we get a match to the password we are trying to get, we would know the password of the we would know the password which the actual which of the initial password. Unfortunately, the same thing. I wanted to show the brute force dictionary attack and the next couple of attacks, actually, as a demonstration, but I'm not able to do it because I can't present the screen right now. Could you go to the next screen, please? Okay. The thing about the dictionary attack is, until and unless the password is in the dictionary, you cannot the algorithm cannot find the password. uh, but in another method, what we can do is called as a rule based dictionary attack. We would basically pass on some of the rules to the algorithm, saying, if my original dictionary password, or the key, or the string in my dictionary would say be a password, what I would basically do is I would append or add few numbers at the end of my password. So if the dictionary has a name called as password, we would also give like password 123. The rule would add that much of characters. It would also try like capitalizing the first letter and keeping the string. And it would one amazing thing about this is we can also give, like, people tend to change the character A with at, or E with 3, L with 1, and they would think that the password is pretty secure because I've converted, like, the changed one of the keys with something very similar. But we have rules, and we have set of rules which we would set, and that would do all these things automatically for us. Next slide, please. Coming to the rainbow table attack, what would basically do is, even there are some limitations to the rule based attack as well, and some of the passwords are pretty much uncrackable with that. So the next step we do is rainbow table attack, where we basically hash the password which or the dictionary which we would get, hash them, and store the whole hash key. And then what we do is we would split the whole hash key into, say, typically your hash string would be of 16 letters for MD5. So we would split the whole hash key into uh, into two parts. But that would be eight in length, and then we would run the same hash function on this eight letter string, and we would store them as well. So basically, we repeat this until and unless we have a whole set of table where all the possible combinations of that dictionary would be stored. And then when we have to crack our passwords, we would basically run the whole hash which we have saved previously, and we would run them to see if any of the passwords match. The disadvantage of doing this is it's a balance between the computational time and the storage space which is taking. When if you think about the brute force, you're not storing any of your data, so it's basically computing and just trying it out. But the thing is, it takes a long amount of time to do all that. When it comes to the dictionary, rule based dictionary dictionary, you have a set of dictionary names, but you have also the uh, rules. But even though it takes a little bit more amount of time, but it has to store all the dictionary data. So the amount of storage you're doing is pretty much more there. So, but in this case, it's a balancing act between those two, and you would get the most efficient results using the rainbow table attacks. Next slide, please. Uh, okay, I would like to. if my screen was being shared, I would have shown the thing where the passwords like your name with your like your date of birth or the way you have born, your phone numbers. If anytime your password has some amount of your personal details in it, or some kind of a string, some kind of a number, it would be found in either the rule based attack or the rainbow dictionary attack. And it is pretty scary to see how what we think as good passwords are pretty easy for an algorithm to be cracked. There's a famous saying that over 50 years that we have been using the passwords as our password system, we have made people or the humans difficult the password to be difficult for a human to remember, but pretty easy for a computer to crack it. So, how do you protect your password if you want to have a very strong password? Next slide, please. Basically, for if you had to figure out if your password is brute force, like your if you can crack your password using brute force, if your password is less than or equal to 8 characters, so your password length, if it is less than or equal to 8 characters, for the most part, it is crackable, pretty much easily crackable, which with relatively easy amount of time. If it's 9 to more characters, and if it includes your numbers, your small and big characters, and some amount of symbols, the chances of someone brute forcing in your password is pretty rare because of the amount of time it takes to brute force your password. Next slide, please. So coming to the dictionary attack, it's pretty bit difficult because even if you give random strings and some amount of numbers to your password, it would come up in the either the dictionary or the rule-based dictionary attack. So there has been a format or a kind of a way where you can save your password in a very secure format. Could you go to the previous slide, please? And this would basically be if you take a random string of password, being that PROUB 4DOR ampersand 3, which you can see on your left side top side of your left side. It includes all your capital letters, small letters, all your numbers, common substitutions like replacing A to at or O to zero. It even has the symbols, numbers. It for the most cases very difficult to guess brute force or get through dictionary attack. And the entropy or the amount of time it takes to brute force this, the top one would be 2 to the power of 21. That would be 3 days at 1,000 guesses or the 1,000 hashes per second. To do it at 1,000 hashes per second, it would take around 3 days to crack this thing. But the problem with that kind of a system to remember your passwords is probably nobody on earth or any human would be able to remember this password to like multiple sites of accounts, multiple accounts, and multiple passwords of different random passwords. So one good way that has been come up is appending four to five random common words next to each other, like correct horse battery staple. Because it is a very long password, even if it has very like only the lowercase letters, it's pretty difficult to brute force. And because the rule based attacks or the password attacks only takes into consideration of each individual dictionary elements, it usually does not append two to three words together to find your password. But the thing is, because okay, and the entropy for this would be 2 to the power of 44. That 550 years at the same 1,000 guesses per second, which is we could conclude that it is impossible to do it. But the thing about this password is because it's very well known and this method of using has been for a couple of years. There also have been some rules which have been set to simulate this 4 to 5 letters. And while using this, while creating your passwords with individual common words, what you could do is to improve it, you could use three of very common words used in the English dictionary, but just use one of the letters which are like very rarely used. Even though the correct and the horse battery are pretty much used in the daily life, I don't think if I go through the say 50,000 common top English words in the English dictionary, even though the correct horse and the battery words would come up in like top 1,000 to 5,000 words, the word staple is would come out like in lower 30,000 or over 40,000 letters. That position would be over there. So the probability of someone taking that word and appending in this correct order would be pretty difficult. If you want to take it to another step, what you can do is uh, you could add a underscore and or a hyphen in between those letters. Like say for correct, rather than doing correct, you could do co underscore rrect. So you should not like append or add the underscore or the symbols in between the words, like not after the correct, but it should be uh, like it should not be in between correct and horse. It should be in between the letters of your correct. So that would make your password for the majority of the part non-hackable or non-crackable for the most part. But you can think like I told that you should not use the same password for multiple sites, but you have to create a very strong password. But it is inconvenient or pretty much impossible to generate a new password and store it like to give it to each and individual sites. So what you can do is you can use something called as password managers. Could you go to the next slide, please? Basically, what password managers are, you would have already come across them in something called as browser-based password managers, which are included in the Chrome and the Firefox. Now, the problem with using the Chrome or the Firefox built-in browser is the Chrome does not have it does not like store your passwords in a encrypted format. It just gives out, it just stores in the cookies as a simple text. But the Firefox, though the Firefox does store it in a encrypted format, it does not have most of the functionalities as creating new passwords and storing them in a very secure way. So the other part which comes is the third party password managers. And for the most part, if you had asked me like 2 or 3 months ago, I would have recommended LastPass to be for the most people, as LastPass has this functionality of creating random passwords and storing it them and autofilling it for you, and it would do all this seamlessly in your either your you can install it on your phone, you can install it on your browser, pretty much every device, Linux, Windows and Mac OS alike, and everything is synced. But all the passwords which are there are not in the LastPass's like a data account, and but it is stored on your local device itself, but it's secured in a using something called as SHA-H hash function, which is currently the state of the art hash function to be used to secure passwords. But recently, 2 or 3 months ago, what the LastPass changed their policies as you cannot switch your or you can not sync between your laptop or your computer devices to your mobile devices, being the phones and tablets. if you're using your free account. So you have to pay a some amount of amount to the LastPass in order to have both all your password synced between your laptop and your mobile devices. That is where the Bitwarden, even though Bitwarden was present from the very beginning, it wasn't the best password manager. But because of the policy changed in the last pass, Bitwarden added few of the functionalities, and it can do pretty much whatever the LastPass was doing. But uh, adding on to the protection layer, Bitwarden is an open source software. So you could literally go and see all the source code which the last Bitwarden was using, and Bitwarden also gives you an additional resources where you can uh, host your own password storages, where Bitwarden does not like, even if this in case of like using a free account where you would store all the encrypted password in your local storage, it for the purposes of syncing between devices, Bitwarden has to take your whole secure hashed file from your local storage and sync it between devices. But what you can do is you can deploy your own server and ask Bitwarden not to interfere even in the process of syncing between devices. This feature just made the Bitwarden as one of the most popular password managers in the current day and age. Next slide, please. Uh, Unfortunately, because I could not share my screen and show how the passwords are actually cracked, and uh, I could not do it. I would like say my thanks to all the panel members and the people who have attended the seminar, and I hope all of you change your passwords immediately and shift and use a password manager, and do not use the same passwords in between all of your websites, in between your websites. Thank you so much for the opportunity of sharing my insights into the password cracking.
Thank you so much, sir. Do we have any questions from the participants? If so, they can put their questions either in the chat box or unmute themselves and ask.
Yeah, sure. You can. I'm open for open Q&A session.
So there is one question. How are Google suggested passwords generated?
Google suggested password generated. Okay, I'm guessing if you Google the password generation, like random password generation, it would either give previously used passwords, like someone would have entered that password somewhere. It would either be taking the data from there, or it would generate a random key or random string of password which would give it to you, which you could either remember or store it somewhere and give it to your website. I'm not sure what the question completely means. I'm, but I'm guessing that it would basically give previously used passwords, or it would uh, generate a random string of a string and give it to you as a password.
So we have another question that came up. If we pass hashed password, then will it be more secure?
Uh, okay, I guess so, because if the password is already hashed and you hash it again, which is what I think the question means, if you are hashing the password two times, but I wouldn't think that it would actually increase the security, because if you can crack one of your passwords, like if you're using the same uh, process to crack the password for the first time and to bring it to the first time hash password, you can use the same process to get back from that hash to your original password text. So I do not think that would actually add like a. Uh, it would be more secure, but it would add an extra layer of protection. That's all.
Sir,
Hello.
sir, Yash is speaking. Sir, Yash.
Uh,
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Sir, I was telling that I have done some certification regarding CEH and CC and CCI security.
Okay.
So, how to explore in this field? I have to go further in this field.
So you want to get into the ethical hacking, or you want to go into something else?
Ethical hacking only, sir. I'm
Okay.
second year
Okay.
BTech student.
Basically, what I would recommend is ethical hacking or cybersecurity and your normal developers are not that different from each other. What the information you gain is the same. TCP protocol or the protocols which HTTPS are the same, which both of them learn. It's just that how you are using that information differs from a developer and to a ethical hacker or a cybersecurity. So, for a developer, he would look into how to use the technology to communicate in between the services, while as you, as a cyber security person, would just basically look into the code and see if you could bypass the security, or you could find some of the loopholes in them, and you would just exploit them to for the majority of the part. For you to get into a basic thing, there would be some of the hackathons or any other events going on. Some of the popular ones which I have known is like something called as a capture the flag hackathons, where they would give a bunch of challenges for you, and you would have to use your knowledge, previous knowledge on that, and you would basically crack and get some kind of a key and present it to them. This, in my opinion, is the best way to get into it, because you would be actively practicing it, because you are doing the competition. You're learning in the process, because you have to think on the fly and make the decisions of what actually works and what does not, and which would basically give your general understanding of how cracking or the cybersecurity works.
So we have another question here. How password managers create passwords and maintain different passwords for different users?
Okay, basically, what the password manager would do is it would use a password generation or a random string. Uh, it's called as a random string generator, and which is made popular, I guess, by Python's few of the libraries are there, where they would use something as Sharach or flywheel methods to generate more or less a random string of text, which you can give the input in terms of like LastPass or Bitwarden. You can give the parameters, like if you want to use only lowercase or uppercase letters, or you want to add the numbers or the symbols. And you can even say if you want to have the password to be like you should be able to read and remember them, and you can give such parameters, and they would create the random string according to that. And the way they maintain different passwords for different users is they don't store any of your passwords. They would basically the hash function, they would store all of your passwords in a text file, and they would hash your whole text file, and this hash file will be stored on your web browser or your local storage. And so because it is stored in your local storage and none of them are in the web server itself, it can be very secure, and they can create different passwords for everyone. Okay, I got another question. If the password manager database is compromised, is it a threat? Uh, for the majority part, the password manager database is stored on your local system. So even if any person gets a direct access to your local system, if your master password is very secure and you have created your master password to be very long, and you've gone through all the guidelines to create a one strong, very strong password, it will be the even the user who has a direct access to your database. would have to crack that password in order to get all your data. So if you have one strong password and keep all your passwords in the password manager and secure it with a very strong password, the chances of you being a being a threat of you losing all your access is pretty rare. You have to make sure that you don't leave your devices in which you have your uh, password managers installed or deployed. You don't just randomly leave it in here and there, because even even though it cannot be hacked externally, there are something called as keyloggers or malwares, where the person who if they want to gain access to your password managers, they would just deploy a say a keylogger to your device, and once you're typing in the password to your password manager, they would just capture the keystrokes from your the system and they just store it or send it remotely. And once they know your master password, they would just gain your physical access again, and they would just enter into your database. But until and unless you don't give others physical access to your system, you're pretty much safe with the password manager. Um, I would like to add another thing for the password managers. Some of the password managers, popular ones, what they also do is they would scan through the leaked databases or on the dark web, and those services would keep a log of all the passwords which have been previously used. And if your credentials or if your password has been used somewhere else and it has been data breached, they would give the notification for you to change your password, and so you would know your password has been like compromised, and you would change the password again so that it becomes secure again.
So there is another question. If we generate password with different salt each time for different sites based on user data in cipher form, will it be a stronger password?
I'm guessing you would be salting your password like physically and giving it to your different websites, and yeah, that would be a very great thing where you uh, uh, salt your passwords with different sites. But wouldn't it be difficult to still remember? Okay, salt in a cipher form. Yeah, that would be a very strong password where you're giving. Okay, if I understand the question properly, you're giving your ciphertext as your password to the website. Did I get it correct? So you're taking your salted password, ciphering it, and then giving that as a password to your website, or are you just storing it in a ciphertext? Okay, if you're giving the okay, in that case, if you're giving a ciphertext as your password, there's no way any of the hackers would be able to get your credentials, because even if the person like gets see the strings and if he does all the dictionary attacks, but because you have already encrypted the data and you have salted it, even you would basically be finding your salted encrypted text if he is able to crack it. But there is no, for my information, there is no way to like detect uh, if a password or the string is already ciphered. So your password will be very strong and you won't be able, you don't have to ever worry again about data breaches ever again. But I would think that that would be very time consuming hassle to do it. I don't know why you would want to do that. It would be pretty inconvenient to do it, but it would be pretty secure, yeah. Is there any software in corporate? Uh, I'm not sure what you're asking about. Software to like crack the passwords, or Cipher password. There are many cipher password softwares. So like, I don't think they're called as softwares, but they're called as methods, where you would, if you want a simple cipher format, you could look for MD5, MD12, something like that. But if you want a stronger one, you can look for SHA-12, SHA-24, and those were the one of the top most password text, where even it doesn't matter how small your password is or how basic your password is, it would be converted to 128-bit pass string, and this would be your in your password file. But I don't think you need a software. You just Google SHAR5. You will get all the information you want to know, and you will get like simple scripts which would convert your password to your ciphertext.
Uh, do we have any more questions from the participants? I guess we are done here with the questions. Feedback form link has been shared in the chat box, and all the participants are requested to fill this feedback form. So there is someone saying, I have published one research paper in ICC BDC.
Oh, okay. Uh, okay. If you want to explore in the field, you would basically. Okay, I'm guessing if you want to get into the cybersecurity space, the same recommendation what I've given before, you would read through all the documentation on all the methods of how the TCP protocol, IP protocol, whatever it works, and then you would go through some of the computations where in the free time you would go through some of the computations because you would get the hands-on experience of how other people are doing. You would meet other people, so you would gain knowledge from them, and because there's no like there's a misconception that all the hackers would have like a forum or something where all the we would keep all the methods to hack into some system in like a secure vault. There's nothing like that. Everything is like open to people. It's the same thing what it is taught in your colleges and taught in your courses. It's the same thing which we learn. It's just that the implementation or the way we use it, the same code would be different, and that is pretty much the difference between a hacker and a developer. So the resources are all already there. You just have to try it out, practice it, and look at it in a different way. That's it. Okay. What can be alternatives to password? Uh, I don't know if you know or do not know this. Google has been heavily trying to move away from the password system. They've been trying to get into like the yeah, and majority of the thing they've deployed it as a secondary authentication or the um, where you they would text send a request to your phone or some other mobile device, and you would give like a second step authentication, and that would be done. Other ones is QR code integration that I don't think is made public for the majority of that. But what Google is doing is you would basically get a QR code on your screen when you have to enter your password, and you would scan that from your mobile device or any other uh, mobile device, and that would give you the access to that system. But the problem is, how do you secure the mobile device? Because that would be one point of contact. Again, I am assuming for the next 40 to 50 years the password is going to stay. And maybe after that we would get into more advanced things, like when you have one of the crazy ideas was, if your mobile rests, or the way you use your phone or pull out your mobile from your pocket would determine if it's the same person or not, because you develop a habit of how you remove your phone from your pocket. So the Google would just get all this data and just see if it's the same way, if you're taking out every time. And if it determines that you have taken out in a different pattern, it would basically ask like you to authenticate yourself if you're the same person. These are few of the crazy things, but I don't think the password is going away for next 40 to 50 years. And the thing is, our system would be perfect, but the weakest link in any system, any secure system, would be the humans. Humans are the majority of the reasons why data leaks or data breaches happen, and or the systems get hacked. I am not proper mentorship to write my papers. Okay, I'm assuming you need guidance to like explore some more papers and like to write more papers. As I said, it's basically you have your initial paper what you have published, or you have taken a base paper. You would go through the references. You would find more papers. You would you would discover more papers in them itself. And in cybersecurity space, for I would say 60 to 70% of whatever is discovered would be published in terms of papers within 6 to 1 year of when it was found. You just filter out your search results to be very recent papers. You would get all the recent activities and advancements in the cybersecurity space. You just go through them, you read them, you gain knowledge, and once you have a decent understanding of one specific topic, you would write more papers. And I am assuming you need guidance to write more papers, I guess. So that would be it. Just read it as normal as everything else. You just read more papers, you gain knowledge, and you write more papers. I want to go to research field in ethical hacking. How to go further? Can you suggest me some steps to go further in this domain? Uh, I would like to like add on to the hackathon idea what I've given, because majority of what hackathons, cybersecurity hackathons, what happens, um, a huge amount of recruiters come there, visit the hackathons, and see how people are doing. And the easiest method for you to get into cybersecurity space would be through your hackathons, because they would see how you're working, how your skills are, how you can think on your feet and crack passwords or get into systems. And because they already have like a basic, that would basically be your interview where you like they know how much you're capable of. And once you are able to prove that, you would basically get into the recruiter's notice, and they would just call you up, and uh, they give you the contacts to join the company. Another way, a simpler way, would be to basically go through the normal job recruiting process of like applying to those jobs and going through the interview process and going through them. But if you want to do something as freelancer, you would have to have contacts in the space. Like if someone or some organization you know of is doing such a freelancing things to other companies, you basically have to go approach them, pitch them your ideas or prove your talents, and they would recruit you as a ethical hacker.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session. I guess all the questions and queries have been cleared out now. If in case participants still have few questions, they can put it in the chat box. Meanwhile, participants are requested to fill the feedback form in order to receive participation certificates. I guess we don't have any questions now. So I would again like to extend my thanks and gratitude to Sir for joining us today for such a great session. And we have a small token of appreciation for you, Sir. Meanwhile, so few of the participants are asking how can they follow you.
Okay. Uh, if you want to follow me, you could find me on my LinkedIn. My user ID would be Prajwal Raju P. All small and no like spaces in between. Hacker Association. Okay, this is one of the misconceptions that there is like a association or organization of hackers where you will get all the information whatever you want. There is no such thing as a hacker association. There are clubs and groups of people who are like majority of who are like professionals of hackers. They just form a group and they just stay. And most of them are you just Google and you would be able to find them. They're not like a very secretive organization or something. They're like pretty open, and it'll be pretty much like if you know Quora or Stack Overflow, it'll be basically like those, but they'll just have like a subdomain or something. And I think you can even find such groups on Reddit if I'm correct. There are like plenty of cybersecurity related Reddits where you get a lot of information from the Reddit itself, and you can learn a lot of things from there. Uh, Thank you so much for the opportunity of being able to. I feel privileged to be able to show all the things, and thank you so much for the. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. I guess the participants have now filled the
Feedback form is
feedback
not
form.
opening. Feedback form is not opening in my side.
Kindly try to change your browser and then log into it. Are the other participants also facing the same issue? Because we have already received the responses for the same form.
I have not received anything else.
Sure, I would request the participant then to fill the feedback form in order to receive the certificates.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And here we would like to close the session. I would like to thank all of you for joining us today. And I expect that all of we can see all of each other together for the next sessions of Gurukula as well. Thank you so much.